for real, I need these things, and these are kind of like boundaries I need to feel good. And they keep pushing. They love you, but they just don't really respect it. You would need to reconsider that friendship.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to Rich in Real Life. And I am so excited today because we are going to talk about something that I bring up often as something that's truly important when it comes to being rich. We talk about being rich in community, rich in connection, rich in true wealth, rich in opportunity, rich in network, health, well-being, all the things. And I think this is a topic that gets overlooked too often when it truly is our damage control as women. And it is something that can really bring us our power back and hold us together when it matters the most. So I am introducing to you guys the host of the Friendship Forward podcast, someone whose incredible work has been featured in NBC News, Oprah, and the New York Times. She is a Bumble friendship expert, and she is a female friendship coach and educator. And I actually think that undersells her because I think she's so much more than that. So I'm really excited to introduce you guys to Danielle Bayard Jackson.
Hello.
Welcome.
Hello, what an intro.
Welcome. I am really excited to have you and have this conversation.
Me too. I mean, it's something that we don't talk about often enough, but when we do, it's really impactful. So I'm glad that you facilitated opportunity to have this chat.
Oh, we jumping right in. Okay. So the reason why I know, actually, I'm going to start with this. It was like 2021. I was in a hotel room in Miami getting ready to shoot someone else's podcast. Mm-hmm. And I'm crying and it's raining outside. And I'm like, God, wash away my tears. And I'm like, I could not think of content for my podcast. And I'm like, you're the content queen. You do content for everyone else. You have over 400 episodes on your show. Like, there's something else. And so I journaled about it and I went to sleep. And I woke up the next morning and I was like, it's because you're not stranded anymore. It doesn't make sense because my podcast used to be called The Stranded Phase. Mm-hmm. And I kept writing down concepts and it became really clear to me in that moment that I was like, what are the things that have mattered that got me together this year? It was, focusing on my well-being, my connection, my friendships. Mm-hmm. And that's where I came up with Rich in Real Life. One of the biggest things I realized so quickly in 2021 was walking away from a long-term relationship. And I'm bringing this up because I think so many women need to hear this, was when I walked away and I needed support, I looked up and I was like, where are my friends?
Yeah.
And then to have to go to the next part of that to take accountability for the fact that oh, you don't have too many close friendships because you have been over here isolated in a relationship. Mm-hmm. And you never took the time to mold or really have that intimacy in any of your friendships because you spent so much of it inside the relationship. Please help me understand why. And I would have gone on a soapbox and told you that I work on my friendships. I would have, because the audacity is I had a female community that was about womanhood and sisterhood and connection. Yeah. So you couldn't tell me that I didn't work on friendships. But then I got out of a relationship, and when all I had to lean on was my friendships, I was like, well, shit, where are my friends? And so why is it a natural nature for women to get into relationships and forget about their friendships?
Well, how much time do we have? It's a couple things. First of all, I really appreciate you sharing that story and having life experience that highlighted for you, okay, friendship's really important. And I think we know that intellectually to be true, but it's one thing to kind of live that out, right? And I think it's
awareness versus mastery.
Yeah. So I think it's a couple things. The first is there is so much cultural hype and praise around being partnered. And so we subconsciously prioritize that because that's a milestone where we feel like, oh, I've made it. I'm on my way. I have my person.
I'm about to get married.
There is less, right. There's less praise around, wow, you're doing really well sustaining healthy friendships. Let's throw this girl a party. That's not happening. So I think we tend to determine our movements focus and attention according to the things that earn us praise and that are reinforced and affirmed. So for a lot of us, when we achieve partnership, we do forget about everything else because we're on like this track and we're making it.
Right.
And we subscribe to the belief that friendship is a garden that tends itself. So I know I have to work in my relationship. Like I'm buying books to be a better wife, a better lover, a better mother, a better businesswoman. Like there's so many resources available. But for friendship, it's kind of unspoken that like, well, of course, you know how to be a friend. Like, why would you have to work on that? And I think we also take advantage of the fact that our friends are consistent, loyal, and understanding. So if I don't talk to my husband or partner for like 6 months, that would be a problem. But if I don't talk to my friends for 6 months, I'm like, but they know. Like, they know I'm busy. Like, they get it. And so we just treat friendship so differently. And it's something we like to access when we need it, as opposed to seeing it as something that needs continual attention and massaging like everything else. So I'm not surprised to hear you say after a relationship, you realize, wait, what happened? The last thing I'll say is, how long did you say you were in that relationship?
7 years.
So there's research that tells us that we replace about half of our friends every 7 years. So it doesn't surprise me that in that cycle of 7, there was a shifting, like a gap, an absence. But for you, it sounds like there was no churn, no inviting new people in and nurturing that. So if you see a shift where they start to leave, but there are no kind of replacements or enhancements because we're holed up and in love, then when we do turn our eyes to our friendship landscape, it's totally barren.
Y'all, I'm so fucking floored right now. You literally just shut down every reel on the internet about like, my friends are supposed to understand and my friends are supposed to know that I'm busy. And like, and I'm listening, I'm like, I'm subscribed to this. I'm like, I'm busy and they know. And like, just pick up the phone when I call, or just call me if you ever need me.
Right.
Like, you're supposed to understand. And I'm listening to what you just said about like, friendship is we tend to think that friendship is a garden that tends to itself. And I'm like, I really think that.
Yeah.
I really thought that.
Yeah. And these like key talking points you hear people make about, you know, my friends know that like, if they need me, like I got them. I can appreciate that. And I do think we need people in our lives who like, hey, I don't talk to you often, but I know. But it sounds a lot to me like an insurance policy. I'm not thinking about you, but I'm in crisis. Now I need you. And so, you know, I'm not here to qualify other people's friendships. If that's your standard for what it looks like for you, that's fine. I just want more for us.
Your friends are not an insurance policy.
Right.
Your friends are not I'm listening to this and I'm like, this is exactly how I've treated my friendships. I have treated my friendships like an insurance policy. And I'm like, I'm busy, I'm grinding, I have momentum, mind your business until I'm ready to tell you mine.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally.
Holy crap.
Yeah, all of us are guilty.
I have not gotten through one question. This is so good. Okay, so hold on. So take me back to the research about the churning of 7-year cycles, because now this is going to go into a lot of this stuff. I feel like this could answer a lot of the questions I have, which is like, I meet so many women that are traumatized by female friendship. Like, they avoid it more than they avoid a relationship because someone betrayed them or talked about them. And like, we could go for hours about how women, you know, trauma bond and all the things. So they're traumatized by female friendships. And then when you get really deep into it, it's like, no, you just changed. People have changed. Yeah. And we don't know how to accept this from one another. And we seem to think we're all supposed to say the same. So if there's some science and research behind this, can you just explain? Because I'm listening to that and I'm like, yeah, I definitely changed. That's kind of why my relationship didn't last, because we started as 2 people and then we were 2 completely different people. And in that turn, I didn't bring in a whole lot of new friends because I wasn't seeking that. So what is the research behind like, you are supposed to have cycles of new friends?
Yeah. So, you know, 7 years is like a big jump, especially for a woman. And I say that because of the unique things that we go through in our physical, social development with children and partnership and all those things. I feel like we are changed more by our like environment as a woman than a man. So 7 years is a big jump of time. And I think for anybody, you know, no matter your gender, I mean, think of you 7 years ago, beliefs that you had, struggles you had, you know what I'm saying, are just so different.
I am not the same.
So different, right?
And we shouldn't be.
Yeah, exactly. So if we are supposed to have friends who affirm who we are and they share our worldviews and we see them, they're our mirror, they help us to better understand how we see the world, but then we see the world differently 7 years later, I don't want to say it doesn't make much sense to have the same people because they can still add value to your life. but don't be surprised when there's like a natural season of friendship pruning where some people are kind of falling off, or maybe you don't invest in them as much, or maybe you became a mother. And so now you didn't do it intentionally, but you find yourself really prioritizing looking for mom friends. You need somebody who can affirm you. They can offer insights. They understand your lifestyle. They've been there before. And so you tend to prioritize that as opposed to friends you were making for other reasons, who you were maybe friends because you guys shared the same circumstance and you're not in that circumstance anymore. And so it's just, I like to share that so people aren't surprised, discouraged, or ashamed when there's a shifting, and they can anticipate it and maybe embrace it.
I saw you do an exercise about this. Can you explain this on the show? It was on another show. You talked about the like, because what you're saying is so beautiful, but I love the example you gave of like, you teach people to like, I am this, I am that. And then when you look at all these things that are the I ams, where you categorize yourself, you should be seeking community that affirms that.
Yeah.
Can you kind of break that down?
Yeah, totally. So if you're feeling like you're in a place where like, I feel like I need friends who get me, or I need more of my people, or I'm just lonely, period, end of story. One exercise to help start giving you direction as to where do I go, what do I do, is think about the statement, I am fill in the blank, and think of various descriptors of who you are, whatever that looks like to you. So for me, if I were doing that exercise, I might say, I am a woman, I am a mother, I am Black, I am a creative. What are the things I feel like, oh yeah, that captures the essence of like who I am? Well, how many communities are you a part of that affirm those various aspects of your identity? So for me, I have to have Black friends. That's a non-negotiable. Because the things happening in this world and the way that I navigate this world in a brown body is going to change my experience. I have to be in a space where I can look at somebody and be like, girl. And she could be like, I know. I don't have to justify, explain, manage people's feelings. I need to have female friends. Because I know some of us, we, like you said, have been traumatized. We're like, I need to be with people who know what it's like to navigate this world as a woman. I need other friends who are creatives or business minded. And so if you're feeling lonely, it's probably because one of those aspects of your identity is not being affirmed. You feel lost in it. You don't feel understood or seen. And that's one way to start kind of achieving that connection and understanding.
I think this is so good because I think anybody listening, I'm listening and I'm thinking, okay, of all the things that I identify with, there's got to be 2 of those that are unmet.
Yeah.
Or things that I want to be that I'm not creating.
What are those for you?
This is a great question. So lately, I just had a conversation with a client and some friends closely that I was just like, I know I'm not taking good care of myself. Like, I know it. And then when I think about it and I think about everyone around me, like the closest people to me, they're not taking good care of themselves. Because my affirming communities are business owners, busy women, type A, hyper independent moms. Yeah. And so like when I think about something that I want, which is like my well-being and my health, I don't have any affirming communities that do that. So I'm like, well, no wonder I'm not pressed or feel welcome because I'm not surrounding myself with people that are prioritizing that. Yeah. Or that can help with that. Right. If that makes sense. Yeah. So I even looked at that in another way. We're like, well, duh, of course you're not successful in that. You're not putting yourself in those positions to do that. You're surrounding yourself with only 1 or 2 of those many things that you are or you would like to be. Sure. So I'm like, no wonder. Yeah. Come on, Jess. Get it together. Yeah. No, I get it. I have to go into this though, and this is somewhat personal before, and I know y'all, this is so good. We're going to stay on the friendship topic, I promise. But I had the blessing of following you years ago. You and I have this ironic story where I knew your husband before I knew you. Yeah. And saw you and I was like, oh my God, your wife is beautiful. Who is this cute girl? Followed you for years. And I saw you as you trekked the journey of trying to make this a very important conversation. You and I even jumped on a podcast together in 2020 because I had an episode that went viral. Hella clickbait. I named it like how to deal with your hating ass friends. And everybody played it, but I didn't talk about friends being haters. I actually talked about how people needed to take more equity in the fact that like you're expecting way too much of your friends. But I remember how passionate you were about this. And I also remember you doing a post of like, and I am paraphrasing, I don't remember exactly what you said, but I remember feeling your pain. You were just like, I am exhausted. Yeah. I am pushing and pushing and pushing this narrative. I'm trying to do coaching groups and like, no one's hearing it. And I could feel, because as a business owner, I've been there. Is it just, am I on my own here? Like, do I just think this is a big deal, but nobody else does? Yeah. And then to see where you are, so many incredible features. Your work is renowned. You now have a book, books. You have, you are being called for everything. And I'm clapping the whole way. I'm like, let's go. But what got you over the hump? Because I can't help. That's where I'm at right now. And I know there's so many people there. Like you have the work, the money's coming in, the things are working, but the math ain't mathing. Like you just get to this point where you're like, I'm churning to the point of no end. And like for a little bit of results and a little bit of visibility and a little bit of like, it's not even about clout, but just results and like revenue and this all making sense. But this feels way too hard for what I desire. What got you over the hump?
Yeah. I haven't like been in that place in so long, and you outlining it now, suddenly I'm like, yes, I remember.
I saw it. I watched it and I was like, whoo.
It was crazy. I'm a former high school teacher, and then I got into PR a little bit, and I got into the coaching world because I noticed women struggling in both of those arenas. My students were bringing me friendship issues. My PR clients were killing it on camera like this, but privately had friendship issues. And so I doubled down and was like, okay, let me read everything I can get my hands on regarding women's communication, women's conflict, and women's cooperation. Obsessed. So it's been about like 6 years now. But in that first like year or two, people didn't get it. Mm-mm. There was no blueprint. I'll be honest, I was embarrassed to tell people, like if they asked, what do you do? I'd still talk about PR. Oh, I do a little PR.
Because friendship on the side.
A little friendship on the side. Because who's even heard of a friendship coach or an educator? Like it's something that feels so silly to people.
Right.
And so I didn't even want to put myself in that position. And in the other roles I had in my life, I felt proud to say what I do. I felt proud when I was a teacher. People were like, "Oh my God, that's so amazing!
So
like
humble
that's so
of you.
noble." Yeah, we love you guys. We need you guys. They don't treat us like that, but they said that to me.
Say it.
And being in PR, like, "Oh, I'm a publicist." Oh my God, that's so cool. But as a friendship coach, this feels really silly. And so it took like a year and a half, or maybe 2 years, for people to get it. But people weren't dishing out money for help with friendships. So like financially it was a struggle. So I had my PR agency, which I still have, and the coaching business. And I remember saying to my husband, like, I'm so tired. Like I'm trying to do social media for both and get clients for both, and it's not really making any money. And he was like, okay, well, you have to let something go. Like you can't just be patting yourself on the back for like, look at all that I'm doing. You're tired. It infiltrates the house because you have an attitude. Because you're tired, you don't have anything left in the reserves for the kid. Well, I had one kid at the time, because I'm tired. And so I said, okay, well, give me 2 weeks and I'll shut down the business. But I need to like tell clients, I need to A week later, a TikTok video went viral. And
I just got the chills. It'd be that simple, y'all.
I mean, it was just that. And it was like a 9-second video. It was stitching a girl who was like, what would you tell your 20-year-old self? And I said something about friendships. Went viral. We got calls, emails, DMs. And so now I was like, oh, interesting. And that kind of changed things, but I still did have to get in the mindset of like, okay, how do you make money off of it? I don't just need people like sending me DMs.
Right. Okay.
And so for me, it was a part of identifying all your strengths and how can you leverage those. So I'm an educator at heart. Like, how can I make courses? How can I make ebooks? How can I, because that's what I do is I teach. How can I teach a little bit, but the rest of the lesson you need to get in the paid community. So I think for me, a lot of it was just continual experimentation, releasing things that you don't like and they exhaust you, and really keeping in line, like, what is your purpose? I know we hear that all the time, but it's so easy to get distracted. And before you know it, you're not doing what your purpose is with the business because you're trying to get hits and engagement and all these. It's so easy. But like, what is my purpose? If my purpose is to help one woman say, oh my gosh, I think about friendship totally different now. And like, I literally see the results in my life. That if I'm saying that's my purpose, that's my focus. And I try to keep that top of mind. So I know it's like not as tangible or like a money-making map, but for me, trying to keep that focus has made other decisions very easy. What new, program should we add? What partnership should we have? That question tends to keep us focused. And so far it's worked out.
It's worked out well.
Yeah.
I always talk about this, like hell yes is an effortless nose. Like,
yeah.
And it feels like it looks like you are like in the most alignment you've ever been in.
Yeah.
But I remember, and I think people just see the success. And
right.
I'm like watching you and I'm like, no, I remember when that girl was like,
I was broke and tired.
I'm looking like I'm about to throw this shit away. Like it's about
totally.
to go.
Uh-huh.
Good. Oh my God, I love this. Okay. I want to pivot to this because we have to have this part. You said on a post and I was like, I've never heard anything realer in my life. You said, so many friendships start with, I really didn't like you. Or when I first met you, I didn't like you.
Yeah.
And I was like, literally every woman on planet Earth. And then I thought for a second, and then you had a post about like shooting your shot is not just a relationship thing, it's a friendship thing.
Yeah.
And I thought back and I was like, man, I remember in my 20s being in like working groups or like trainings and seeing a girl that looked like me. And I'd be on an internal mental mission to become her friend. Like I'd be like, oh, she looked like me. It like we hang out in the same places. How do I get near her at lunch?
Yeah.
Like I remember that's how I made one of my best friends. I went to her wedding like last year. Like we're still best friends. It's been 12 years. But I made friends with her because I saw her and I was like, oh, you look like me. Like, and we could be friends. So I made my little mission that day to get around her. And then I thought, what has happened? Is it our age in our 30s? Is it social media? But what has transpired or transitioned that now I feel like the latter or the before is more true of where like so many people are like, I didn't like you when I first met you. Why are we like this? Why are we so, what is the word? Judgmental?
Yeah.
Tough?
Oh, yeah.
Why?
Yeah. I think it's for a couple reasons, especially with women. I think it's because we perform when we show up and we're projecting when we receive new people in the room. So if I'm watching a woman come in, I'm projecting a little bit. And when I walk into a room, I'm performing a little bit. And so when you put those two things together, like, are we both presenting our authentic selves? Now, of course, the more time we spend, I see little vulnerable sides of you. I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. But I started by being like, well, I don't like her energy or just like her attitude or she didn't speak or there's so many things, but it could be because when I came in the room, I anticipated rejection instead of acceptance. And there's even something called I think the acceptance prophecy, which says that people who anticipate being accepted typically are. People who anticipate being rejected typically are. And it's because what you expect determines how you engage. So if I think I'm about to be rejected in this room and the other women are going to give me attitude, I'm probably giving attitude first so that you don't come at me. Or if I don't think you're going to talk to me when I come in, then I'm going to be on my phone as an avoidant behavior. But that looks like I'm cold and not engaged, so you don't engage me. And so I think there's so much of that going on. And then when the defenses come down, we see more human sides of each other. Now we resonate and now we're like, okay, she's cool. But it's because she was performing and you were projecting. And so it takes a little while for us to stop and then be like, oh, I like you.
I'm like, why are we making this so difficult? Why are we like this?
Yeah.
Because it really is like that.
Yeah.
You did a post once where you were like, it was so cute. You were talking about how we have this vision where we see someone we want to be friends with. And then when the moment comes, we're like, hi.
Yeah.
I was like,
yes.
It's almost like our pride and ego is worse than men.
Totally. Oh my gosh. Yeah. I heard somebody say on social media, and I wish I knew who it was so I could give her proper credit, but she said something to the effect of, men see us as an object and women see you as like a person. So it feels like even more pressure to have a woman like you. Like if a guy doesn't like me or find me attractive, I can just be like, oh, I'm not his type. He's not my type. Like whatever. Plenty of fish in the sea, whatever. But with a woman, I feel like you see me. I feel like you see me because you are me, and it feels so much more personal to be rejected by you. It feels so much more awesome to be accepted by you. And so there's just so much stuff that comes to the table, I think, when a woman, meets with another woman. There's just so much. It means so much.
This is so good. You are debunking. No, debunking is a kind word. You are low-key cussing me out because everything I think to be true about friendships, I'm like, wrong. Ooh, Jess, the audacity. No wonder your life is the way it is. So I want to lean into this. And this is actually the most beautiful thing I learned about friendships, but I had to learn it the hard way. Again, 2021, I deep dive into what feels like I might as well have been an infant in friendships. Mm-hmm. And so I remember the phone calls of because then I also go into this splitting my child 50-50 thing. Yeah. So I'm on my days off, I'm home and I'm calling people at noon and I'm so what are you doing today? And I'm who can I passenger seat ride with
Yeah.
on whatever they're doing for the day. I'm like, I've actually never done this because I've been in a relationship the whole time. So
Yeah.
like, oh, you're going to brunch, I'll go. Like, it was very like, how do I invite myself to stuff?
Yeah.
Like, this is really weird. And so I'm like working on rebuilding these friendships, and it takes a while. It was literally like, I kind of give this example all the time of like, I felt like I was in a cage and someone like politely opened the door and I was like, you want me to go right now? Like, I got to go outside right now.
Yeah.
And it took a while for me to walk out, and I came out and I started making some friends. And what I found to be so beautiful is like, there's this window of, especially, and I want women to hear this, because leaving a very committed relationship, it's very easy to crave the replacement. So I was craving like, you know, intimacy again and deep connection. And I'm like dating and I'm doing all these things. And I'm like realizing I'm trying to fill this void. And when I caught wind of the fact that I could sit on my couch with two girls that I really enjoy deep conversation with and feel the same exact level of intimacy without the physical touch, but it was the exact same void, that they would leave and I would feel so full. Yeah. Of like, oh my God, I just had these really intimate connections with women that are like me. And it was like, I just remember experiencing so much joy and intimacy from deep connected friendships. Yeah. And then I read in a book by Catherine Woodard Thomas, it's one of my favorite books. And I can't think of the name. And she said, your first real effort, your first real test at love it's not through partnership, it's through friendship. And I was like, and when reading about it, it just talked about how like unconditional love and forgiveness and forgiving over and over again all transpires first in friendship before it ever does in partnership. Yeah. And I was like, but that thing that made me, and I don't know if it was great or it messed me up, because it made me feel like for a while, I was like, I just need my friends. Yeah. I just need my friends. Like, talk to me about the level of intimacy we can have in friendships. Because people will always say like, oh, your man's your best friend, or, oh, one's a woman, one's a man. You can't have it in this and then have it in that. And you can't have that level of intimacy in both. I was filling my cup with friendships. Yeah, yeah. And so talk to me about the intimacy that takes place in friendships that people may be missing out on. Yeah.
First of all, I love that quote that you shared, because there is a study that finds that the number one predictor of how satisfied you'll be in your romantic relationships in adulthood is how you were in your same-sex friendships as an adolescent. So it could be because everybody's like, oh my God, what was I like at 11? What was I like at 11? And when you think about it, it's because like we do tend to be socialized, you know, boys in this group, girls in this group. So we're mostly around girls coming up, right? And most of us were around, like 70% of our friendships are with the same sex, according to research as well. So you're with girls all the time growing up. That's where you learn the skill of advocating for yourself, forgiving each other. You know, are we excluding each other, receiving each other, being vulnerable, like it's happening with your friends growing up. How did you do there? Were you good at being social? Were you good at communicating? Were you good at sharing and being generous? Because friendship is at the heart of romantic relationships. So that will determine how you do in that, you know, on that terrain as well. So yeah, how you do in friendship is going to transfer to romance, because that's like the fundamental building block. And the intimacy that you're talking about is so important. At the end of the day, I think in any human relationship, the questions we're trying to answer are, do you love me? Do I matter? And am I safe here? Those three questions. And we tend to look to our romantic partner to answer all of those. I'm safe here. As long as that person is answering these questions, I'm good to go. No one else needs to. Yeah. But the thing is, there are three different kinds of loneliness. The first is intimate loneliness. And that's when we are feeling like we're not intimately known by another person. And for a lot of people, that's satisfied by their partner. I feel like, well, he knows me, accepts me, like knows good and bad, he knows. Then there's relational loneliness, which means we're lacking friends, like various relationships. Wow. And then there's collective loneliness, where we feel like we're not a part of something bigger than ourselves. We're a part of a group, something with more meaning and purpose. The reason I bring that up is because for a lot of us, we expect our friends to just satisfy relational loneliness, but our friends can help us satisfy intimate loneliness too. They can know us deeply and help us feel seen, like we matter, like we're safe. But if you have been waiting and expecting just your partner to meet these magical special places that your friends are limited to, then it makes me sad because it limits all that friendship can offer you. And yeah, so, you know, going back to what we said before about a woman really seeing you as not like an object, but like a person, when that woman accepts you or shows you in so many words, you're safe here, or she is pouring into you because she's supposed to be your mirror, like you can't see your own self. So you're discouraged and she's like, girl, what? And can speak life into you. You know, there's something about another woman offering that to us in a platonic way.
So let me be clear. I have a best friend. I promise I'm not that lonely. It's narrow over here for sure. I don't call it lonely anymore because I feel I've had seasons of loneliness. Yeah. Now I feel very full and I have like 2 to 3 very intimate best friends and that's it. And I know there will be a season where I'll seek more. But like my best friend, I wonder, sometimes I'm like, it's a tad bit toxic. Cause like I talk to her probably 9 times a day. Like I saw a post yesterday, or she sent me a post yesterday that was like it was like this woman running really fast down the street and it was like me running to tell my best friend something I'm not supposed to tell anyone. Like that is us. We do everything together. And she taught me that there was new levels to friendship and it was profound. It was such a mirror for me and pulled out a lot of my shadows because like the way she loved me, I was like, I didn't know friendship could include all of this. Like, and I didn't know, you know, you'll hear people like, oh, don't go into business with your friends or don't do this or like, don't be in so many areas. You have like A friends and B friends and C friends. That is a friend that I've never been able to cross all parts of the street with. And we are top tier in everything. Like she is literally like, I joke that I co-mom with her all the time. She's like the best parent to my son. We are business partners in several business adventures and we compartmentalize very well. Like, hey, we need to talk about this. Or sometimes we'll get on a business call and I'm like, we start talking and we're like, oh, we need a friend day. Okay, bump this, like scrap this. We clearly need to talk, you know, or we just run to each other to tell each other everything. Like we do friendship work very well. We do mirrored conversations very well. Like, hey, this is what I see has been going on with you. Like, do you want to talk about it? Do you want to go to this? Hey, I scheduled this thing for you because girl, you kind of been off. Like, let's do this together, but I'm going to, and I got you. So like we do everything together. And that level of love, I'm not going to lie, I ran from it for a while because I was like, this can't be real. Now we're talking about co-living. Like we're like, can we do a duplex next to each other so that when you have kids and I have a kid, like we can do this together? Yeah. And sometimes I wonder like, where am I going to make space for the man that enters my life? Yeah. Because this is my person. Yeah. But I say all of that and I'm joking, but I really invite people to expand their vision around friendship because I would have never. I really did. I was such a relationship girl and it was like, hold your friendships over here. And now my cup is so full. Like that's where I always say that's home. Like on a Sunday, if I know I need rest, I go over to her home and we just sit and, you know, and I'm like, that is it. It's deeper than intimacy. It is like such a platonic love that I'm like, wow, I didn't know I needed. And I just like, I'm just making the point of like, I stress to you guys, you can have that. And I was the number one person that did not think that you could have that with a female friendship. And it has been the most filling, safe, loving situation I've ever been in. And now I'm like, I can't see my life without this person. It's crazy.
That is really beautiful. And I know it's something that a lot of women are yearning for. Like I want a person like that I can, you know, co-live, co-parent with, talk to, business, you know, so that's a blessing to be able to find a lot of those needs in one person. So one exercise I like to give to women who are single especially, and they're like trying to figure it out is think about all the things that you've said you look forward to doing once you get your partner. Traveling.
Why are you not doing this with your friends?
Thank you. That's my point. I can finally, you know, buy that house. I can't wait to get somebody so I can like buy the house and, you know, travel a little bit. And I want somebody to, you know, hug, you know, all these things. And now look and see how many of those could be appropriate to friendship. You'll probably find 90% of them. And I'm talking about like co-living too, buying a home too. You know, in social media, you're starting to see, at least I see because I follow this world, but a lot of women who are saying like, I'm buying my house with my friends. And we bought a house together. And I know for some of us, we're like, what?
We'll for sure have a compound.
So like challenge your ideas of the things, the goals that are suspended until they're activated by partnership. How many of those things could you be enjoying now if you allowed yourself to start reframing what it means to enjoy life and who fits certain categories, and how are you limiting yourself?
I got to dumb this down for y'all, what I just heard you say, because we make a internal joke all the time to like our very close friend group. But I joke, I'm like, I could do everything with Megan, but we do everything besides have sex. Like, everything. Yeah, everything outside of sex, we do together.
Yep.
Because it is like, I can do everything with this person. Yeah. Like literally, and her fiance is my best friend. He's my son's godfather. Like we all do everything together. And it's like, and people are like, is it too much? And I'm like, no, it's everything. I can do everything. I can travel with her, bump everybody else, bump having a partner. We can literally travel, co-work, anything I need. I can call and say, this is what I need. I'm like, oh, I'm eating like, okay, we'll come over here. We'll all meal prep tonight. Like it is so fulfilling. And it's really funny because her and I created a community together 5 years ago called Innovative Income. And we would do surveys after every live event. We did a live event every year. And the most mentioned thing that people gave feedback about that they wanted to know more about was not the concepts we were teaching, not the people we were bringing, nothing that we had said. They all wanted to know how Megan and I did life together so well. Like they were like, I want a friend that I can go into business with. The questions were always like, how do you guys not mess each other over? Do you guys never argue? Like, how are you running all these businesses together and you still are like best friends? And we were like, this is a thing. Yeah. This is a thing. Yeah. And so like, I 100% stand behind what you said, that you can do 90% of the things that you feel like are the things that you think you want that will bring you life, but you need a partner to do, you can do in your female friendships, and that shit will set you free. Yeah. It will set you free.
Totally. And it goes to, I don't know if you said this like before we jumped on camera or not, but like how you have to rethink or relearn friendship, or like, gosh, I'm 35, I'm 30, and I'm trying to figure out like, yes, because the scripts that you were using at 12 are inappropriate at 35. The scripts you were using for friendship, your environment's different, your life demands are different, your values are different, but we're trying to apply the same script and it doesn't fit. And so we do have to keep relearning. Okay, what does friendship look like? What can I give? What's possible with friendship? Oh, I never thought about it that way. So for you to talk about how like now you're seeing like all the love available in the friendship realm, I think is something a lot of us are starting to learn.
I hope at this point when you're listening to this, like what I really wanted this conversation to be about was about the love available. Like, and I'm like, I hope you're listening to this at this point and you see that like, as much as we want to play victim and as much as we want to point fingers, there's so much radical responsibility you can take in architecting your friendships. Like, I mean, even me, I'm telling you, I'm listening to this and I'm like, oh yeah, Jess, you messed up. Like there's some things you could have gone because you treated this like an insurance policy. You did not treat this like work. I have been a rock star. I used to always say going into relationships, like, I don't care what happens as long as I can leave the relationship saying I gave 100%. So there's me in relationships. What in the entire hell am I doing in friendships? Not that. Yeah. I'm like, just be there when I call and call me when you need me. Yeah. What the... Like,
now, let me ask you this, because this friendship you're describing as so life-giving and you guys are so integrated in each other's lives, would you also say that this is a friendship where you've given the most?
No.
Okay.
It's effortless.
Oh, okay.
It's too easy. That's the problem.
Oh, okay.
Like it's so easy. And it's like the trust, like, and seeing that all the things that happens in our friendship is the way I want my relationship to be. And don't take that overboard. That sounds corny, but like the trust that her and I have creates so much autonomy and freedom that like I remember someone going to her one time and called her about me and was like, kind of tried to create like a weird narrative. And she called me busting out laughing. And she's like, somebody just called me and said this and this. And I was like, oh my God, I would never. She's like, I know, I'm cracking up because I know you and I wouldn't dare. And I was like, get off my line. Like, you know? And so it's been so freeing that I see traits that I'm like, I want this level of trust. Yeah. I want this level of love. I want this level of give and receive. Because like we've had seasons. I want to be clear about this. I had an entire year, because this is a question I had for you. I had an entire year where I had to go to my closest friends, and she was one of them, and say, you are pouring so much into me. It was my most broke season, like not financially broke, but I was broke. Your girl was falling apart. And I said to them, you're pouring into me and I need you to know I have nothing to give you in return. I'm empty. I have nothing to give you. And I know the day will come where I will pour back into you. And I hope you're patient with me on that, but it is not right now. And I have nothing to give, you know? And the resounding response, especially from my best friend, was like, I'm well aware. and I know what you need from me right now. And so I was going to ask you the question of like, when friends are in need, whether they have done a great job of maintaining the friendship or they have not, how long or how appropriate is the expectation that someone show up for us when we have nothing to give?
Yeah. Well, something really powerful about what you did that I don't see as commonly is to announce that.
I knew it.
But what a a clear path you have made of communication, of a person knowing what's up. A lot of us have nothing to give, and so we don't text our friends back. We say we're going to come to that party, but then we don't because we really don't have it to give, but we just had FOMO in the moment. So we said, yeah, we are doing all these things where the person on the other side, if they're looking at the tangible evidence you're giving, they're like, they're seeing inconsistencies. You're saying you're invested, but then you broke a commitment because you can't bring yourself to say, I don't think I have it to give. But at least giving them access to that information, equips them with the knowledge they need to have to figure out how they would like to proceed. Because if you tell me up front, I'm just in a season, like I don't know that I can show up for you, and I just don't, I feel like the, ground's been pulled from under me. I don't know what I'm doing, but I know I can't like show up like I used to. I can either say, wow, I respect that and I understand. I'll be here with you. But you told me. I'm managing my expectations now because I understand where you're coming from because you told me, you let me in that way. But a lot of us are too scared to announce that. So our behavior comes across as contradictory to people. They're like, what's going on with her? She's fickle, because we can't bring ourselves to show what's really going on behind the scenes. And I wonder how the dynamics would change in some of our friendships if we got comfortable front loading the friendship with honest information about what we have to give, where we are, and kind of what we're expecting, as opposed to only getting comfortable doing that in romantic relationships. We're talking about us. We're talking about our expectations. But in friendship, we have this fantasy that, well, she is my friend. So like, she'll just know, like, I shouldn't have to say that. Like, she's my friend. But that's not, it doesn't work that way. So I think it's really powerful that you were able to say what you said and to have a friend receive and say, that's okay. I can meet you where you are. But you had the courage to announce where you are.
This is so unique because I'm listening to this and I'm thinking the audacity we have to not think that friendships, relationships, and business are all similar.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, that's actually something I've learned in business recently is to announce what I'm capable of immediately to clear expectations. So like I get off a sales call and it's 4:00 in the afternoon and I immediately say, they're like, hey, you're going to send that over. And I'm like, hey, actually expect that tomorrow before noon. I actually have to go pick up my son. Mm-hmm. So you probably won't get that till tomorrow before noon. They'll be like, oh, okay, great. Like, and I clear that up. And I've practiced communicating that because I'm like, let me not leave any room for unmet expectations. And I'm like, and you're saying this, and I'm like, it's the same thing in friendship and it's the same thing in relationships. Yeah. But somehow we by nature do it in relationships because we have to see this person every day. We're expected to love this person regularly. Yeah. But like friendships and business, we just expect. And what I'm hearing the foundation underlying thing is like, we just expect people to understand. I can't tell you how many times like, but she knows, but she gets it. She knows. She knows I'm busy. She knows I'm this. She knows I'm sad. Right. She knows I'm broken right now. She knows that.
Yes. So the research shows that we have high expectations in our close relationships, whether romantic or platonic. Women have higher expectations than men. But what's crazy is the research shows that we also have less tolerance for infractions, and we register more infractions than men. So we'll be like, oh, that was messed up and that was messed up. Where a guy's like, oh, was that messed up? So we perceive more violations, we have higher expectations, and we feel like with the female friend, we shouldn't have to communicate things because if you're my friend, I shouldn't have to say it. But you're never going to get to a place where you're so close that it just transcends a need to communicate. And there's so much guesswork and there's so much. We've got to break that like right now. Like the closer we are, I shouldn't have to say, because you should tell by the tone of my voice that I need you to come over. You should tell by what I said yesterday that I'm struggling with this. But like, no, it's not fair. It's not fair to expect her to be a mind reader, to be super attuned to like every cue is not fair. I've been guilty of it. Like my friends probably know I shouldn't have to say that. Like they know how I am. And on the positives too, my friend, she knows I love her. Like, come on. Like, she knows I appreciate her. Like, okay, like, I don't have to give you the whole speech. Like, what tangible evidence does she have to point to that you appreciate me? What tangible evidence do I have to say, oh, I know she loves me. Because the whole like, well, she should just know because she's my friend. It's not enough. Like, it's just not enough. So I hope people listening are getting excited about, again, all that's possible, like how different your friendships would be if you were more tangible and you were more verbal and you were texting her, at 2 p.m. to say, I'm still thinking about, our hangout last week. Like, you were the funniest person I know. Like, it's not the same unless you're there. Like, thank you. And just the emotional impression that leaves in another person. And again, it confirms, okay, I'm valued here. I'm appreciated here. And you're giving me evidence to point to instead of expecting that I should just know it and that should be enough.
Can I be the first to say why? And ladies, let's acknowledge this. I am definitely the person that got called out a couple years ago that was like, as soon as a friend does something wrong, you are the first person to cut them off.
Yeah.
And then I was like, well, yeah, because it's simple. They show me who they are. I'm very clear. Like, they're like, you are not doing that in relationships. You are giving men unlimited chances.
Oh, yeah.
But like your friends do one thing and you're like, I'm good. And I was like, oh, I definitely do that.
Yeah.
That's definitely me.
Totally.
Why? And I actually I was going to say, why do we do this? But now that I think about it, I'm listening to what you said in the beginning and I'm like, because it's so glorified to be in partnership. So we work so much harder towards it, but it's not glorified to be in a healthy friendship. So we just kind of throw it away.
You got it. You got it. A+ student.
Hey!
Gold star. That's exactly what I was going to say. See how it all goes back to what we said before. I'm putting an effort to make this thing work that has been my North Star.
Because I need a partnership.
Yeah. My mom's asking me when I'm getting married. People are like, girl, you're still single at the holidays. So it's my North Star. I'm trying to make this work because so much I've hitched to this partnership. I can finally travel and get the house. Like, I need this partnership. And so I'm going to give more chances. I'm going to have more capacity. I'm going to deal with more deal breakers because I need this to work. But with the friend, exactly, it's, oh, you showed me who you are. And it's also because we have normalized conflict in romantic relationships. You don't see as many models of friends falling out and coming back together. And so if I have this like latent belief that friends should just get me and like we just have chemistry and like it's intangible, we just have chemistry, then when we do have some kind of friction or I start to think like, I don't even know who this is, or like, I don't understand that choice she made, then we start to see that as evidence that we must not be compatible after all. But in a romantic relationship, if we have a fault, it's like, okay, let's talk through this. Like, that's what we have to do. I can change. Like, let's have a conversation, align our expectations. But in friendship, it's like, oh, boom, you did something. I don't like it. I perceive that as like a violation. Okay, this wasn't what I thought it was. And so why don't we give the same grace and stretch for our friends? We have to normalize conflict in friendship. And a lot of what I talk about is about conflict in female friendship, because there's a lot of material that already exists about, how to make friends and like how to open up and be vulnerable. And we talk about that too. But I focus most of my research in those things on conflict because it's inevitable, but a lot of friendships, in my opinion, end prematurely because I don't know how to say like, okay, so I'm not cool with what you said yesterday. Help me understand what you meant. Oh, that's what you meant? Okay, because it made me feel some kind of way. And then the next day we're kikiing at brunch. It doesn't mean I'm naive. It doesn't mean, but it's like, I want to reconcile with you as soon as possible. Help me understand what happened yesterday because I don't understand, but I want to. As opposed to like, that was shady. And I ruminate about it. And then I go and tell another female friend, this is that's shady, right? I knew that was shady.
Oh!
Okay, so now I see you differently. And
now me and my friends see you differently.
Because if my friend also thinks you were shady, like, it's confirmed. I don't even need to talk to you about the shady thing. Because other people hype me up. And another thing we do, and I'll end with this, is there's a psychological concept known as fundamental attribution theory. And it's a big fancy word for we give ourselves grace, but we don't give others grace. So the idea is that, I'll give you the example of, if I'm late to brunch, it's because like traffic was crazy. Like I attribute it to my circumstances. Like I know I shouldn't be always being late, but I always have stuff going on. Like I'm a mom.
Right.
And traffic in Tampa is crazy.
And you get it.
if you are consistently late to brunch, you are being disrespectful. You're not being considerate of my time. You're kind of being like a selfish person. It's all about you. And so we tend to make her deficiencies about her character, and our deficiencies are about like our circumstance. And so like literally the first thing you can do to have more longevity in your friendships is as soon as you're about to attach a character attack on one of her failings, stop yourself and ask yourself if you've ever done the same thing. I'm willing to bet you have. What's the difference? And doing that right there, I think would give you like so much more grace and understanding in your friendships. It would like really, it changes everything. I think I do that okay in my friendships now because like I'm in this space. I got to work on that in my marriage personally. But like with friends, as soon as you're about to call her out for the thing, have you told her? Does she even know you're starting to like build up this hardness toward her? And have you ever done the same thing? And if you have, is it because you're a shady woman? Is it because you're fake? No. It's because you were insecure in this moment or you had a certain circumstance, right? The same understanding you want for your mess ups, you have to extend to your friends.
I'm quiet because I'm so floored right now. I'm like, oh my God. And then I could go into so many variations of this because I've actually mentioned this before, and that I've had other friends. I am, and let me say that this is not something to celebrate. I am definitely the person that I go with the flow. I'm just going with the flow. I'm living life. Like, I'm be late, girl, you good. Like, I'm doing this. We're good. Like, if I'm not upset, you shouldn't be upset.
Right.
Everything's good.
Yeah.
But I do know that I also don't judge people for that because I'm so
Exactly.
I grew up with two hippie parents, so like we good. We're not caring for sure. But then like I've noticed it with certain friends. I do get a little up in arms about things. But then when I think about my best friend, I realize how non-judgmental we are of each other. Like, it's ridiculous. Like, and the level at which we can kind of share that back and forth. Like, I joke with my best friend that you are late to everything. She has zero concept of time. Like, I'm like 7. She's like, you said 9. No, it's 7 for you. Like, you know how you are. Mm-hmm. And then we joke. And then she gets there and I'm like, you always late. She's like, I know. And I'm like, no, for real. You're always late. She's like, I know, I got to work on it. And it's like, and then it's done.
Yeah.
You know, so it's like, we have so much space for grace. And we also have so much space to be each other's mirror. And I would never that's not even there, but I have been in other friendships where it is.
Yeah.
And so I always wonder what the if there's something underlying there about like our inability to keep our promises. Are we projecting? Is there, any underlying jealousy there? Is there, because I definitely am thinking about the friendships where that's existed. And I'm like, there were definitely other underlying things there.
Totally. And I'm sure for you and the friend, you're talking about, it's probably 2 other things that are present that make it possible to be forgiving and understanding and non-judgmental. You probably have given each other tons of tangible evidence that you have her best intentions at heart. She could probably point to tons of things in your friendship history that are like, she has my back.
Right.
Okay. In a friendship where you can't point to tons of evidence pieces that she has your back, you probably will be less, extending in your grace because you're not sure he or she hasn't proven that in your history. But with friends who have given us evidence, like, wait, like for the past 6 years, like I know she has my back, so I have to give the benefit of the doubt in this moment, as opposed to going right to like, oh, she's not who she said she is, I guess. For 6 years, she's had your back, and this thing, so that's probably the first thing is you guys give each other tangible evidence that I have your back. And so this moment doesn't detract from that. It should be absorbed in that. Like all the evidence of love that I've given you should buffer, the offense that you take when I do disappoint you. It's buffered by the love I've given you over 6 years, hopefully. The second thing is probably that you guys feel safe enough in your relationship to say when you feel like she tried you or what you feel safe enough to say that. If you're in a friendship where you don't have safety to say, I feel like it's not okay what you did, or like I feel some kind of way, then again, you're not going to be forgiving. So it's like all these components work in harmony. There's safety to be vulnerable. There's security so I can challenge you without fear that you'll abandon me. I've given you evidence of my love that should buffer the times when I inevitably disappoint you. It calls so many things into play to have a friendship, like the kind of friendship that you continue to refer to. So it requires a lot. And I think at the end of the day, this should show that you bring a lot of your personal stuff to the table in friendships. You're going to find the areas you need to work out. If you have trust issues, that's going to be a problem. If you have unforgiveness issues, that's going to be a problem. It's going to affect the way that you can relate to another person. It is hard to be in relationship with a person with trust issues, who's unforgiving, who's defensive. That's not an enjoyable experience for me as a friend, to continue to explain myself, to continue to ask for forgiveness. You have trust issues, so I have to keep bearing the penalties from people before. You're just sitting and waiting for me to betray you so you can be like, see, I told you, but I'm going to let you down. Like, I'll tell you that up front, okay? I'm going to say things and then 2 days later I don't do them because of whatever, but I hope that that's okay, or that you can forgive me, instead of being like, and that's evidence of why you can't trust people. So friendships, just like relationships, will bring a lot of your personal issues that you need to heal to the table, because they are exposed in your relationship with other people. And I'm going to argue even more so with other women because of what we talked about earlier. I feel like you see me, I can't run from a woman. She sees everything because you are me. So I feel like relationships with other women especially are going to bring up a bunch of stuff. So the woman, I'm sorry, and I know some people listening might feel some kind of way, who is continually saying, I can't do women. I can't do female friends. I understand that. I have a heart for that. I know that probably is speaking from a place of being wounded by women. But if you are pushing women away and you resigned yourself to never be in relationship with them, it makes me wonder what else is going on, because they are you. You are them. So it's not just that women are awful. I mean, I don't think I'm awful.
No.
You're not awful. It's not that women are awful, but what are the other issues going on there? So anyway, my point is, your friendships will really be a reflection of the healing you have done and the healing you have yet to do.
I don't know about y'all, but I'm very clear at this point what my problem is. Just listening to this, I'm like, this is all about where your time and energy is spent. The whole thing. Because I'm like, we're talking about conflict resolution. We're talking about authenticity and vulnerability. Like all these things we're talking about that need good friendships. I'm like, I do that in business. I do that in relationships. I give chances. I give grace. I know that 80% of the, 20% are going to be mistakes and necessary forgiveness, and 80% of it's going to be great. And I know I know the expectation of when I mess up in business with someone, like, oh, hey, you guys missed this, or da-da-da. I'm like, I have this expectation of like, well, we do such good work. There should be some grace yielded,
Totally.
And I do the same with the contractors and the people that I work with, that I'm like, you do such good work, I can extend some grace here.
Yeah.
And the same thing in partnership, like, oh, well, if we've been together 5 years, majority of it has been incredible.
Yeah.
And you check all the boxes. So you just made a couple mistakes. So understood, I can overlook that. But like in friendships, both of these things seem so hard to do. But when I look at those 3 important categories in my life, I'm like, well, that's the place where I spend the least time. So that makes so much sense.
Yeah. And I hope that gives us hope. Like the connection you're making right now, like, hold on a second. Like I have these skills in these other places. I have those same like philosophies, like in those other domains of my life. I hope that gives us hope. Right. As a businesswoman, you probably know how to communicate expectations. You probably know how to like, okay, forgive, we made a mistake. Let's get back on track with business. Like you probably already have the skills. So I hope that makes us hopeful. Yes. You already know what to do. On some level, you already know what to say. It's just that reframe of like, oh, I have to treat my friendships like that too, but I've never had to. I've always been told like, oh, she's my bestie. We were instant besties and she just gets it. I don't even have any models of what it looks like to reconcile with a friend. I've never seen that before because every woman in my life has projected her hurt onto me. So when I was 6 years old and I went to my mother and I said, these girls said something at school, she said, cut them off. When I had a problem with the girl at 8 years old, my teachers told me, just be nice. So the philosophies we've been fed as a young girl to cut them off, they're just jealous, baby. Don't play with them. They're jealous of you. To start to breed a defensive like, oh, other women are jealous. I need to defend myself. They're sinister. What concepts and philosophies have been projected from other women in your life as you grew up and you're still using that? And how is that creating barriers to enjoying all that adult female friendship has to offer? So some of us need to like reevaluate the philosophies, the theology of friendship that we were trained to have from when we were 6 from people who loved us and meant well. but they were hurt. So I'm trying to protect you, baby girl. So trust me based on what I'm saying, what I've been through, you need to cut her off. You don't need friends. You have family. You don't need friends. You need us. We are your friends. All of these dysfunctional ideas of friendship that you have brought up with you, and you realize, wait a second, that might not be true. And so, I mean, there's just a lot to reckon with.
Y'all didn't know y'all was going to church today, did you? This is so, Danielle, this is so good. Okay, I want to wrap with two different things. And I do want to take it there because there is some truth to the darker side of friendship. Yeah. Again, we started in the beginning, like a lot of people are traumatized by female friendship. There is a side, and I want to get into this, of like friendships expiring, not working out anymore, needing to have the hard conversation or the hard acceptance of like, this person may not be my person anymore. But I personally believe that it's truly never that, because I used to cringe at the like, cut them off. Yeah. Like cringe, or, oh, she's just a hater now because I'm successful. No. I'm like, people just have a hard time supporting what they don't understand. Yeah. The audacity to think that someone should be as excited about you as your goals is ridiculous. Yeah. Like, so stop putting that expectation on your friends. But I really think it's just that like, we're either mad, and I know I want you to get into this, but I'm like, I think we're mad that they can't support us the way that we want. We are mad that they're projecting in some type of way. Totally. We're mad that they're not celebrating us. We're mad. There's just all these things. And it's like, it just really needs to be visual. You need to be able to see it, accept it, and then decide if it's something that you can forgive them for, or it's something that is unforgivable and you cannot move forward with it. And then you need to make that choice. But you did an article that was featured in Oprah. Congratulations.
Thank you.
About the 5 signs you need to break up with a friend. And so now we've gone on this whole episode talking about how friendship is just like partnership and it's just like business. So now there's a friend breakup. When is it? Because I think this is so important to have this conversation, because I feel like so many people are too aggressive with it. Mm-hmm. I hear people like, oh, I had to set a boundary and I cut her off. And I'm like, yo, that was not that serious. Like, she was probably going through something, and did you even talk to her about that? Yeah. And then there is times where I know for sure people have said to me, like, or I've said to other people, you need to have a conversation with her because this is a little too much. Like, it might be time to part ways. So what are the signs to be like, it might be time to cut this thing off?
Yeah. It's so hard because I want to start by saying I hate being here. I hate like having to have this conversation, because my whole platform is like, here's how we reconcile. Here's what to say. Here's how you forgive. Yeah. But the reality is you cannot bring every friend with you throughout your life. Like, there's not enough space. It doesn't make sense.
Right.
Sometimes it's just something you cannot make work, and you can't wish it into reality. Mm-hmm. A couple signs to me that you might want to evaluate. I'm always hard to like, cut her off. Here's some signs. Maybe need to reevaluate according to a couple things. The first is, if you ever feel like you are going to be punished for speaking your truth or acting in your authenticity. And I don't mean punished like, our parents spanked us or hit us, whatever, but meaning like, if you do or say this, she's going to attack you verbally. She is going to punish you with a silent treatment. If you feel like I have to be careful or I'm going to get in trouble, that would be a problem.
Yes.
If you can't trust a person. Now, I do think you need to do the work to figure out, okay, how much of this is just my complex of trusting, and how much of it is this person has done some things that are inconsistent. And I don't know that I feel totally like safe here. I'm always doing the mental and psychological labor of wondering, is that true? Was that for real? Is that for real? There's no time for that. That's basic. If you cannot trust them, you can keep up the friendship in some way. Maybe she's like your go to cocktails girl, and you are able to personally compartmentalize.
Right.
If you can't do that because that feels fake to you, you need to create some kind of separation. Because you can't be having wins and you can't be trusting them with certain things if you're always questioning, like, is she really have my back? Is she saying positive things about me? Like, when I leave and the girls get to talking, like, is she saying positive? If you have to question, I think that's huge. If you have certain needs, and you can really differentiate and be honest with yourself, difference between wants and needs from her, like, girl, I need this from you, or like, hey, this is, a boundary. Like, I just don't feel good about certain things. And they keep pushing and pushing and pushing against them, or dismissing them. Like, girl, you're really about to be sensitive over that. Like, all of that. And you're like, no, for real, I need these things. And these are kind of like boundaries I need to feel good. And they keep pushing. They love you, but they just don't really respect it. You would need to reconsider that friendship. Because if I give you information and I say like, actually, I thought about it. I think I really need this, like in a friendship, and I don't feel comfortable with these things. And that person's minimizing, dismissing, and being like, girl. And they keep pushing, even though I've said, no, seriously though, like I don't like that. That goes to emotional safety. You know what I'm saying? That I can't, trust that. Totally. So there are different things I think that call into question. Can I be my total self here? Can I challenge or speak my truth without fear I'll be punished? And trust that I'm like in a good space and this person has my back. I think those are like just like the foundations. But I don't think anybody should kind of go toward those actions unless you've given that person a chance to self-correct, because you'd be surprised. And I'll say this too, because I actually got a comment from somebody on TikTok that's like, wow, you give all this advice about friendship and say all these things. Do you have friends? You never talk about your friends. And I just was like, first of all, mind your business. Okay? And doing this work is very vulnerable for me because I'm very big on like, I just want to stay professional. Yes. And, it's not about me. It's like about the work. Right. Yeah. It's about you. Like I want you to achieve, like it's not about me. But I've gotten really comfortable lately, like over the past year, of sharing my personal life because I'm understanding that some women can't receive it until they know that like I'm on the journey with you. Right. So I'm not like, here's what I learned. Here's how to do it right. It's like, man, and I struggled with that yesterday.
And I still continue to struggle with it. So I'm practicing these things.
Oh, totally. As a matter of fact, I'm like 2 weeks away from finalizing my manuscript and this whole thing. And I rewrote chunks of the book because I looked back and I was like, what am I doing? Like I am trying to compensate. I'm trying to just be like, bah, 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 bah. But women need to know like there was no heart in the book and had to like rewrite it. I didn't want to put my own personal business. I was like, I say all that because when it comes to friendship breakups, recently, it's been so long since I've had friendship drama because like I get it all right, But recently
I do this.
Yeah, So no, so I had an issue of my own like a couple of weeks ago. Had a friend where I just kind of kept thinking like, I don't know. Yeah. And sometimes it is elusive. You can't put words to it, but you're just like, I don't know. Yeah. Like, are we still on the same page? I don't feel like we're in sync. And I don't think I was doing it intentionally, but then I started to distance myself because since emotionally I was starting to feel like distance, it reflected physically. I was calling less, texting less. If she reached out, I was just like, yeah, okay. Yeah, we'll circle back sometime when I get back. And so at one point she was like, what's going on? Because I don't know, you're acting different. Like what's happening? And I'll be honest, this is where you can say like, you're such a hypocrite. But I was like, oh no, nothing. Like we're good. Because it's so easy to gaslight in friendship. And that's a whole other conversation about how we aggress with one another. But instead of being honest, actually, yeah, something is wrong because I'm scared that this is going to go left because I don't want you to blow up at me. So instead of just being like, no, we're good. I just,
And I also don't have time to deal with this.
I don't have time to unpack this. Like, I'm just going to say we're good. And you just believe it. Okay. Like, don't make me have to like really go there. And she was like, okay, I feel like that's not true because of this. And so I was like, I just feel like I don't know if I have the capacity to blah, 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 blah. And then I realized I'm using therapy speak, which I'm noticing a lot of us starting to do more in our relationships. Yes. I just don't have the capacity or the bandwidth to maintain this relationship anymore. And I hope you can respect that. Like it's cold. And for somebody you've loved for so long, why are we going formal on people who we're informal they know us? It feels insulting to them. It feels disrespectful, but we do it to protect ourselves. So we use that language because it feels like I'm controlling this and here's my script. Instead of like, honestly, I don't know how I feel. I've been feeling kind of confused about our friendship. I feel some kind of way, but I'm not really sure how to say it. And I don't want to offend you. I don't want things to be weird. That is heartfelt. There's no defenses or mechanisms. So we got on the phone and for like 90 minutes talked through it. And I had this moment where I was like, do I tell her all the things? Do I go down the list? Well, this time and last month. And so I shared it with a couple of friends and they were like, you need to like just tell her. I'm like, why would I tell a person like, I feel like this was shady and I feel like is that even going to make a difference? But I was like, you know what? If we're going to be on a call, like, let's put it all out there, ready for it to end. And I'm like, well, this thing at the party and this thing, and I just don't know how I feel about this thing. And she surprised me by saying like, okay, you're right. I guess I never looked at it like that. You're absolutely right. That was not okay. I'm sorry. And it blew my mind. But here I am not practicing what I preach of like, oh, I know the story. I know why she did that thing. I don't need to talk to her about it. Like, I know her well. She did that because of this. She clearly did that because of this. And my own assumptions, ironically, because we're so close, I don't have to ask you about what you meant. I know. Like, I know you. But it turned out half those things were wrong. Half of them were right. But she was willing to say, you're right. That wasn't okay. And also, here's some things about you that I'm not cool with. And I had to sit, which is so uncomfortable, and be like, okay, yeah. And it was hard. And I'll be honest, right now we're in that stage where it's like, it's kind of awkward.
Do we rebuild?
Yeah, which I need us to make more space for. That period where you're like, this is awkward. We both know that conversation happened. It doesn't feel like it did before. But currently right now, today, having this conversation, I'm willing to give it time. I'm willing to see what would happen if we just stay in relationship and we talk to the degree that it feels appropriate and we stay in connection. Can it be a boomerang friendship? I don't know. But, you know, as far as like taking my own advice, it becomes hard to do it in real life because you have so much of your stuff to work out. So I know it up here and I like to be like, oh my God, here's what the research says. And oh my God, I coached a client through. Like, I like to talk from up here. It's hard to share from right here because it exposes my stuff, my issues with vulnerability, pride, all those things become exposed if I tell you about my friendships. So I'd rather just stay up here. And so having these conversations about breakups and making friends and things like that, it requires us to get smart about it. What do the studies say? What do the research say? Okay, I'm in good company. But you have to come from here. You have to come from here and deal with your stuff if you really want to have really good friendships.
There are some times, thank you for sharing that, first of all. There are some times where I think about all the things I've learned, being overly educated, reading every book under the sun, going to every breathwork therapy, hypnosis, everything that I've ever done, learning beyond anyone's willingness to understand myself, others around me, be deeply connected. And sometimes I just have this moment where I'm like, I read this book by Bob Goff called Love Does. And sometimes I'm like, that's literally all it is. Like, if we could just throw all the therapy speak away and just lead with love does, which meant love solves everything. When you lead in love, it solves everything. Yeah. And if similar to what people, people that believe the Bible would say as well, is like, if you love the way that God loves people, you will never have any problems. Yeah. And like, sometimes I just want to throw all this shit away and be like, if we just lead with love, if we just forgive people, if we love people the way that God does, everything would be different. Totally. And I'm listening to that and I'm like, the way you had to sit in that and the way you had to be open to hearing her apology, that's all just rooted in love. Yeah. Because so much of what we do is rooted in ego and protecting ourselves and putting the wall up. And you won't come in here. You won't mess my life up. You won't hurt me. Yeah. You will not get me. You will not catch me off guard. Totally. When love is vulnerable. Love feels weak. Love feels dangerous. Love is like, I remember someone saying, if you give someone a key to love you, you give them the same key to pain you. And I'm like, that is friendships. And I'm listening to you and I'm like, this is all rooted in love. Yeah. It's so funny. That's how I like the book I'm writing. That's how I kind of ended it. I had some wine. I was like, I need to lighten up. And I'm like, yeah. And it's so funny because it's so simple, but that's at the end of the day, it's exactly what you just said. And like, don't get me wrong. I've made a career off of like having a strategy and a script and like, here's what the research says. Somebody like, does. Yeah. Like that's my career. That's what I do. I study the research. That's what I do. But sometimes I just want to be like, this is all details. Yeah. It matters because like how we deal with each other every day, right? Like it matters. But at the end of the day, it's all details. What do I say if she's not initiating and I feel like she's jealous? And what do I say? And I miss my friend and blah, 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 blah. And what if she hurts me? It's all details. At the end of the day,
You want women who will love on you, and you want to be able to love freely on other women. That's it. But again, because we've been wounded and we're trying to have control and we don't want to admit flaws and we want other people to be our savior, there's so many complexes that are coming together, and we're masking, and we're, at the end of the day, you want women who will love on you, and you want to know how to love them well. That's it. Those are the two questions. I don't care if you have a 6-figure business. I don't care if you're a 19-year-old in a sorority. We're all walking around asking the same two questions. And I think, again, kind of back to that answer I gave before about like how to stay clear with the business. I have a mission statement. That ought to be yours. When you're about to pretend you're not hurt, when she texts you and asks, are we cool? How do I receive love better from other women? How do I love her better? Okay, if I want to receive love, I got to be honest in this moment. These are my two guiding questions, okay? If I want to cut a friend off because she hurt me, this might be painful, but in order to receive love better from other women, I need to detach myself from this toxicity if I want to receive love better, okay? If I want to be in a space where I feel like I have women who I can just like laugh and I can shine and I'm not skeptical that they'll think I'm shining too much or feeling myself, okay, how do I cultivate friendships where I can love freely and I trust that they're giving me good love? It's the same two questions. So whenever you find yourself at a crossroad in friendship, you don't know what to say, you wish you had a script, you wish you had a strategy, ask yourself, how can I use this as an opportunity to love people better? And how can I allow myself to receive good love? That'll probably tell you whatever you need to say. That is the script. That is the script generator, is those two questions.
Just remember me when you get famous, okay?
Oh my God.
Because Danielle, listen, this was so good. I want the book. So tell me about the book. I know y'all want the book at this point because this was good.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you. I'm excited to have the book come out. The book comes out May 2024, which is like a while away.
We'll still be struggling with friendships. Don't worry. We'll still be in the same place.
Yeah. So the book comes out next year. And it's been a long road. When I, got that book deal, which was like such a blessing, I was 8 months pregnant. When it comes out, my daughter will be 2.5. Wow. So like, that's how long
the work
takes.
of a book.
Yeah. In publishing. But I hope women enjoy it. I had to like go to therapy writing it because I'm like, what if people don't like it? What if people, on TikTok are like, this book sucks. So I'm just trying to get comfortable with like, you know what? This book is not an encyclopedia. Mm-hmm. I hope it's one of many books on your shelf to help you figure out how to get it right with other women. I've done my best in the book to, use stories, research, and things like that. But what the book does, it's tentatively titled Fighting for Our Friendships. And there will be a section that explains the mechanics of female friendship, what brings us together and what tears us apart. It'll also talk about how we aggress with one another. The little things that we do, I call it sophisticated stealth, where it's like, we do little things to each other and it's hard to pinpoint if you're just watching two women, but we know that thing that she did. So it talks about that. And then there's a guidebook that walks through the most 9 common conflicts we have, and then scripts and strategies for how to navigate those. So I hope that a lot of women can read it and say, man, I wish I had this 5 years ago, or man, this is going to be really helpful. But my goal is to give us some common language to start using to describe what we're going through so that we're like all on the same page. And then having that shared language can help us to have better friendships. So that's the hope. That's the hope.
Fighting for female friendships.
Fighting for our friendships.
Fighting for our friendships.
Yeah.
Fighting for our friendships. If it changes, it'll be down below in the show notes. You guys have to grab this book. Where can they stalk you?
They can stalk and do all the things either on the website, betterfemalefriendships.com, or join me on Instagram at Danielle Bayard Jackson.
So I can't think of a better way to end a friendship episode than this. This is so interesting because my heart is pounding. I've been in such a season of forgiveness, and I feel like that's what God is like calling on my heart right now. Like he's like, anything that you just like, if you have to walk into a room with somebody that you know of or you have known in a lifetime and you feel any animosity or just you're uncertain, like you said, you walk in and you feel rejection, like lead the way to clear that up. Mm-hmm. Because just lead with love. It has to be none of that. And I have known you for so long. And I've always felt like, or I felt this underlying tone of like, I'll never be as smart as her. I'll never be as articulate as her. Like she's so well put together. And like, I will never be at the level I want to be if I don't show up in that way. And I think that skewed me from, and I don't know whether or not we were ever meant to be friends, but I think that skewed me from reaching out sooner. I think that, and what an insecurity of mine that was, because just sitting in front of you today, I'm like, oh, we could have been friends. I would have enjoyed you so much. And before this, we even jumped on, we were talking so much about business. And I was like, and you talked about creating community. I'm like, oh, we're so in similar places.
Yeah.
Like we would have been able to really be damage control for each other. And I'm like, but we've been in the same community for so long.
Yeah.
And then when I went to prompt myself with that question, I was like, Jessica, that's your fault. That is your fault. So I just, I'm sorry I didn't reach out to you sooner. I wish I would have gotten to know you sooner. 2, I've always admired your work. And 3, you are everything that you represent. And I just wanted to say thank you. And thank you for sharing everything that you do and being vulnerable about it, because you have definitely changed the way today that I see friendship. And I know you will change everyone that's listening right now. So,
wow, that's amazing. I appreciate you saying that. I appreciate you saying that. And, I reached out to you a while ago. I was like, I'm listening to your podcast. This is so good. And I sent you that email. I appreciate you for modeling what you talk about, because to even say that right now, like, gosh, I thought this of you and it held me up from doing this or whatever. This is that moment I'm talking about where we see like more human sides of each other. And then we're like, oh, I see me in this person and we could be friends. I hope that what you just did, a lot of us take as a template and we're like, okay, I'm going to do that too. So you just doing that gave permission to women listening to do that too. So I appreciate you for that.
It ain't worth this hard shit, y'all. It's not worth it. Like, I'm looking at you and I'm like, God, how many questions could we have helped each other with? How many things could we have answered? Not to use one another, not to leverage one another, but just I'm like, you probably were down the road.
Yeah.
Like, why did I not strive to build some type of rapport or relationship with you, all rooted in my ability to think I can't carry myself in the way that you do? It's crazy.
Oh my gosh.
It's so crazy. So I hope you guys get something from this. I know I did. I'm literally like, I was sitting here while you were talking, like, who do I need to text? Who do I need to call? Who do I need to like show up for that I haven't been showing up for? So I hope this was as beneficial to you guys as it was for me personally. And thank you, Danielle, truly.
Thank you so much for letting me share this space with you.